will not be sorry you tuned in to today's episode of the Thought Snob Podcast, because I am sitting here with Joe Moody. And you are going to leave this podcast with life-changing information. Joe is a wellness coach, sharing insights for life and teaching natural healing with 2.7 million followers across various social media platforms. Joe, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Yes.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I mean, it's not every day that I have an opportunity to have a conversation with someone who I have seriously admired from afar for such a long time. And I invited you to come on the show for various reasons, but the main one was that you have this special talent for making complex psychological theories and practices just really easy to understand. And I've learned a lot from you. And and the work that you and I do is similar. You know, it's interconnected and it overlaps in many ways because we focus on helping people change on a subconscious level.
Right.
And what we believe in is not like a normal, traditional pathway to success, really. And so I just want to kick our discussion off here by asking you this question, because I'm very curious about why you adopted this lifestyle and this line of work. And so what was the catalyst for change?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. It actually began happening, I think the current state I am in now, this character I've created, or this persona, Joe Drummer Boy, really began when I decided to do something outside of my ego. And I decided I was just going to create this kind of private account, actually. You know, it wasn't private, but it was just for me. I wasn't telling any friends or family about it. And I was just going to share insights and share Qigong moves and stuff that I didn't really want to have to think about anyone's reaction or outcome. You know what I mean? So I did it. No one knew I was even doing it. And the catalyst for change became actually, again, just following a path outside of my ego. When I try to do ego things, I've had some things work and many things don't when you're following the ego. And when they do work, it's a lot of effort and struggle. So this one was the opposite. This one just started flowing. And I enjoyed doing it. And then I started noticing certain things were resonating with people, and especially kind of what you're saying, these truths, these concise truths just started resonating way more than I ever expected. And so what actually then happened is I was also at the same time getting into this new fitness club that I had started with the ancient fitness routines, made new for modern minds. Called Qigong, which just translates to energy work, really, the cultivation of life force energy, or energy work for short. And so I was already getting into that at the same time. So there we had these parallel tracks where I'm just kind of doing what I feel and love, and I'm also starting this fitness club, both actually being born, we'll maybe talk about this later, born out of, the dark time we went through kind of in 2020, where we all kind of rearranged our thinking. And so these were coming along these tracks. And then why I was interested in when you wrote was that the law of attraction, I already knew about that and everything, but I actually started even more than that, getting into the idea that we are creating our own reality, and that our subconscious is especially creating our own reality, not the ego. The ego is trying to chase and create things, in a state of effort. And so I actually started listening to a woman named Kelly Howell. I don't know if you've heard of her, and she actually does basically it's kind of subconscious subliminal, but it's what it is she'll put you to sleep, with a nice guided meditation, and then she'll just say the affirmations, kind of like what I'm doing now. And the first time it happened, I literally woke up and it was like a night and day difference. I was like, wow, my subconscious just got so many blocks removed. And I'm walking around and life is just more colorful and open for me now, without any effort. And so I was like, I need to help, eventually I was like, I need to do this for other people as well. But So that was really when I discovered, that we are creating our own reality. And once I did that, things just even accelerated more. So
Mhm.
what I was already starting had less effort involved.
Mhm.
So yeah, and literally that just and it's just kept going. So yeah, I mean, sometimes I do get caught in the effort, like, oh, I want to keep this going or whatever, but I remember that, you just let go again, and it's your feeling of gratitude and
Mhm.
just and knowing that things aren't always going to come to you, and those things are not meant to come to you. So that's
Right.
another part. So yeah.
So you said that, so is this relatively recent? Like you said, did you just
Yeah, so right, so exactly. So believe it or not, I've gained 2.7 million followers in less than a year.
holy shit.
From doing all this, right? I was already a writer, and I've had things go viral. I've had one article make thousands of dollars,
Mm-hmm.
and 100, just blah, blah, blah. So I already had these insights and things building up. I had businesses I'd started. I had all these things going. I was a trained journalist. I'd been studying energy work for years just because I needed to stay
Mm-hmm.
alive in this crazy world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it all just kind of, and then once, and then I had to kind of hit a point where everything didn't make sense for a while, in 2020 for a little bit of time. And then once I hit kind of a rock bottom, actually, that became a foundation to then see I'm only going to build upon now what works. So rock bottom became something positive. That's actually a J.K. Rowling quote. She,
Mm-hmm.
her rock bottom became something, the foundation she built upon. But that absolutely happened with me because I got to see what actually works and what didn't. And the
Mm-hmm.
first thing that worked was Qigong. Boom. I started clearing the negativity out of my organs the way ancient masters were doing for thousands of years, and
Mm-hmm.
it worked. And so here I was now with all the negativity purged, and I was still like, now what the hell do I do? I have
Right.
all this information, I have all this knowledge, I have all this training, I have now purged the negativity. And that's when I created the Joe Drummer Boy account. I said, I'm just going to do what I love. So yeah. So
Wow.
yeah.
That is absolutely fascinating. And so I had not heard of it's Qigong. Qigong. Am I
Right.
pronouncing
Most
that
people
right?
have not. You've probably heard of Tai Chi. And of course,
Yes.
you've heard of karate and judo and all that. It all springs from Qigong. Qigong
Okay.
is the base physical forms that were created from traditional Chinese medicine. And then other people said, oh, let's take Qigong and create karate. Let's take Qigong and create, all these other things come
Mhm.
out of Qigong. In fact, the whole entire force in Star Wars is based on Qigong. George Lucas studied Qigong masters, and the force is actually just Qi.
Mhm.
So
Interesting.
fascinating. It is, and it actually is. So there's a lot of reality to it as well. There's a lot of, there's a science is what I meant. There's a lot of science,
Mhm.
and more science every day. They can
Mhm.
see the bioelectromagnetic field,
Mhm.
now and with instruments. And so people are, I think some people may have been skeptical or even more into it because they can actually see these energy fields that the masters knew about for thousands of years, that even every organ has, every cell actually has a little energy field. And
Right.
the state of that energy field will determine your health.
Yeah.
Because it's like a shield. It's going to protect you, even from cold wind. If your energy field's strong, that cold wind's not going to hit you like
Mhm.
it will somebody without that chi flowing strong. So
Interesting. Well, I've heard you say that Qigong saved your life. And I mean, you just, touched on that quite a
yeah,
bit, but I'm just
yeah,
curious,
exactly. That's kind of yeah.
how'd
Mhm.
you stumble across it? Like, how'd you find it? Or maybe it found you.
Yeah, that's actually a fantastic question. And that's okay. I've always, again, because I was studying energy work, I learned about Qigong 20 years ago. Interestingly enough, from a couple much like my wife and I thought it was
Mhm.
fascinating to see this man and woman doing these forms in harmony. I thought that was a cool thing to show the world,
Yeah.
'cause you see the opposite mostly today, right? Um,
Mhm.
especially on, movies, TV, whatever. And so that, but mainly they worked. They were clearing. I was already touching upon clearing out things and calming down, my, whatever, we all
Mhm.
have. And so But then what happened is again, when I kind of hit that rock bottom in the pandemic, where I didn't really trust healthcare anymore, I didn't trust society anymore, I didn't trust really all the leaders were letting us down left and right. It's just
Right.
like,
That was
um,
bizarre.
yeah, it was a bizarre
Hmm.
time, and it really showed us a lot. It was like everything became transparent for that short time, and you got to see a lot. And it doesn't mean
Hmm.
it has to stay that way. We just got to see where it was then.
Hmm.
And so once I saw that, it was my wife actually, and this is a cool full circle here. She was on Instagram and she was watching a woman in, I think, just a woman, actually Qigong lady. Her name is Qigong Lady on
Hmm.
Instagram. Look her up.
Hmm.
And she was doing just a fantastic form to clear fear out in the kidneys.
Hmm.
Fear and anxiety is stored in the kidneys. That's why people pee when they get scared sometimes. It's all related. All these things make sense.
Hmm.
So I was like, what? But she was doing it in this beautiful, amazing way. It was like a dance almost, doing something medical. I was
Hmm.
like, wow, this is awesome. I already knew about Qigong, but I didn't know it could be that cool. Doing it in plain clothes like we all wear, not in some of exotic robes that were like, oh, I can't touch that. No,
Hmm.
you can literally stop while you're in your hike and do this. And so I was just like, wow, this is amazing. So I started doing that. And so and why I say full circle is because Instagram, so basically Instagram helped get me going, it reignited Qigong for me, or just we'll say social media, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so what happened was then once I started sharing it and everything, it really blew up on TikTok first, because I was just, again, I wasn't trying to, oh, I'm going to post it all these places. It wasn't about that at first. Then I realized other people wanted it and it would almost be not cool to just keep it on TikTok.
Hmm.
So basically I started sharing it on Instagram and boom, it's literally like I've gotten 50,000 followers in the last few days. It's at
Wow.
850 now. And it just keeps,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? So I'm kind of in the middle. You caught me at a cool time because I'm kind of in the
Hmm.
middle of all this, still like, what the hell? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also, to be honest, I don't do a lot of these. I may not do a lot more. Again, your philosophy though was so crucial in helping me get along that I was like, this is cool. And your timing
Hmm.
was synchronicity for sure. Synchronistic. Okay.
Hmm.
So,
Well,
so yeah,
I'd been wanting to contact you for a while. And well, I mean, a couple of months because we're just now putting this, we've been putting this
it's good
podcast
you didn't
together
because
and
I
all
was
that.
saying, yeah, okay. I'm sorry. I was going to say it's good you didn't because I was saying I've literally said no a lot of times very
Hmm.
nicely. And then
Yeah.
something changed this year. I just got like guidance. You need to at least open up the door a little bit. And then you wrote, and I was
Hmm.
like, okay, I'll say yes to this one. So,
That is great. That is great
yeah.
because I literally sat down at my desk that day in my office and I thought, you know what? I'm going to send Joe Moody a message and just see what he says.
Yeah.
And I was really hoping that I would hear back from you. And then when I did, like as soon as you answered me back, I was like, yes.
Oh,
So,
that's so cool. See, that's what
yeah.
I feel. I also felt your good vibe too. It wasn't like
Hmm.
you were trying to capitalize on it. I mean, I
No.
think you offered $2,000, you know what I mean, for one podcast. So it's not like, it really matters about the vibe and stuff. I don't, you never know. I'm treading lightly because you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm enjoying where
Oh,
I am
yeah.
and I'm letting it unfold naturally. And this felt like a natural. I even told my wife, I go, her timing's amazing. I'm going to do this one. So
Excellent. Well, okay. So I'm going to tell you, what really got me, since we're on this track of talking about social media and the stuff that you've put out there, and it's just went boom, right? Okay,
yeah,
so and I told you this, I think when I messaged you. So it is very rare for me to watch a person's videos from start to finish,
sure. Oh,
but
absolutely. Yep.
because not everyone can hold my attention, and I'm also so busy trying to keep all of my content up. It's not like I have all of this time, to watch everybody, but I watch you. And since the moment that I found you on TikTok, I have watched your videos from start to finish religiously.
Uh,
And I must emphasize, to our people that are listening, how you have a way of simplifying these complex concepts, and you come across as really authentic. And one of your videos that totally stands out is the one about 10 truths about life nobody taught you. And as a few days ago, it had 304,000 views. And so it clearly resonated with many people. And I'm sure that it's even more now. And for those that are listening, I'll just quickly run through what you said about these 10
Sure.
truths because I just love it.
Cool.
So the first one you said was take nothing personally. The second one is no one is coming to save you from your problems.
Right.
The next one, life is your responsibility. No one focuses on you the way you think they do.
Yeah.
Right. And then work with people who are smarter than you instead of competing. I love that.
Yeah.
And when we see others positively, it reveals our positive traits. And then when we see others negatively, it reveals our negative traits.
Yeah.
Comfort is the worst addiction and a cheap ticket to depression. Oh, hell yes. And then the next one, don't tell people more than they need to know. And then the family you create is more important than the one you came from. And then you closed with a quote from the Dalai Lama, and it was about living in the now. And so those 10 truths really hit home with me, and I'll tell you why. Because I was taught to believe the opposite of those 10 truths. And the one that really hit home was the one about the family you create is more important than the family you came from. And the family that I came from, they unknowingly brought me down. And in my new book, I refer to my upbringing as my downbringing because everything they did, they instilled this belief system that was just rooted in this expectation of defeat. And so as I listened to your 10 truths, I thought about how I had been, programmed to believe the absolute opposite of those. Okay. And so, you mentioned to never take anything personally. And I was actually taught to react to everything everyone did. So I took everything personally and I behaved that way for a really, really long time. And I've had to unlearn everything that I was taught. And so that leads me to my next question for you. I am very, very curious about your upbringing. And I'm wondering, maybe it was a downbringing because clearly you are a highly educated man, but your level of wisdom comes from just life experiences. And so were you socialized to believe those truths, to think that way, or was it the opposite like me?
That's a great question. And I was lucky in my upbringing, because my parents, my dad actually was a professor, so a very high thinking man, but he did not pound in his philosophies to us, or even he it was a very not it was a very free upbringing. As anybody growing up in the 70s, early 80s, we experienced a lot more freedom then, and it definitely was very free, though on the other hand, he showed a good example. For the first 12 years of my life, it was just very, we traveled to California because he taught at Stanford for a while. It was very freewheeling, just growing up in the neighborhood, gangs, all this fun stuff, just everybody having a good time. And then when I was around 12, my mom had when she had her fifth child, actually, another daughter. Yeah. So I'm the second. And then there's another brother, and then two daughters, and then even another brother. But when she had that daughter, and then we all got baptized. So I'm getting baptized at age 12. I think they're like, I'm like, we got to take these kids to church or whatever.
Right.
And so I'm baptized at age 12, and so what was cool actually is then I did, you learn about the church, you learn about Christianity, which I treasure and I adore, and that's part of my path and it's part of my mission and calling. But I don't, I also love, Buddhism and many other things, you know what I mean? But I definitely was raised Christian, and I think that was part of my destiny to help, join Eastern philosophies. with Western, mindsets, which really desperately need it. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
Westerners are scared of Eastern stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so here comes me. Maybe I can make them, maybe I can make it a little bit more digestible, and therefore they can find more peace and therefore be more tolerant and just make the whole world happier.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I got off track there, but basically, yeah, it was. Okay, yeah, the upbringing. And so, yeah, but just a very moral upbringing. My dad is probably one of the most honest people I've ever met. My mom is probably the most spiritual person I've ever met.
Mm-hmm.
And, she was just always literally half connected with the spirit. And even to the point of having multiple sclerosis and narcolepsy. One half her life, the other in her entire life, she got a college degree with narcolepsy.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness.
yeah, and so, but here's the crazy part. Those conditions reduce the egoic mind and open up the spiritual mind if treated properly, and if not loaded in with all kinds of drugs and stuff, or treated
Mm-hmm.
like it's evil. And so she's an artist. She got her degree, raised 6 kids, and is still kicking. Her mind is fading now. She's 80 years old. But it's an incredible testimonial to how the spirit side is more important than
Mm-hmm.
the physical side. As we know, when we're talking about the subconscious connects with those causal realms, shall we say. And
Mm-hmm.
she was a master in the causal realm, but not in the physical realm as much. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Wasn't keeping the house clean or anything. There was, it was, yeah, there was,
Yeah.
that was their thing. She was very, it wasn't like it wasn't an uptight upbringing. I will just say that it was very however you wanted to do it. My room was the only clean room in the house, for whatever that means.
Right.
Uh, because I cared about that. And so if I wanted a clean room, I had to go clean it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, everything, it was all decent, but it was just funny. It was a different kind of upbringing. The cleanliness was literally spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what mattered. All 6 of the kids, I don't want to brag or anything, but it just shows you they're all no divorces, all happy kids, one adoption, just very, very on their path. Some of them even still very strongly Catholic, in their way. And it's in a beautiful, loving way, and I
Mm-hmm.
am too, but it's not, I'm not expecting that from anyone else or anything. And in fact, sometimes I think it's easier to reach the same people, to reach people without using words that sadly now have been
Mm-hmm.
that trigger people, because those things have been used in the wrong way so many times that
Yes.
those. So anyway, so yeah, so yeah, a great upbringing. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I learned a lot from it. Is it the way I do it exactly? No, but I do adopt the same level of letting my kids have their own free thought
Mm-hmm.
and independent mind, and yet just showing the best example I can.
Well, and this is why I wanted to ask you that question because, the word free and freedom came up 5 or 6 times as you were talking about your socialization and then the way that you are socializing your kids. And
Yeah,
that is something that, wasn't encouraged during my upbringing. And it's like I
right,
was
right.
told, how I was supposed to think and how I was supposed to be. And that's what messes people up. And
I
so
think
I'm,
most people are that way too. Literally, we were the exception. And in fact, now here's the thing, we were considered pretty crazy on our block.
of
You
course.
know what I mean? We were not, so we had to go through literally like, oh my God, it's the crazy Moody's, stay away or whatever, what I mean, or just watch out, or, what are they up to now? So, so we had actually admired sometimes the kids who were all in check. You know what I mean? We would go try to
Right.
keep them and, corrupt them or whatever. No, I'm kidding, but
Right. Right.
they would corrupt. Actually, what was funny is the kids in check would often be the ones corrupting us. So you know what I mean. It's funny how life goes, because once things get
Yeah.
suppressed heavily, they bounce up pretty crazy sometimes. So
Oh
anyway,
yeah. Yeah. Oh
so
yeah.
yeah, there was yeah, the freedom was huge, and it is sad, and I think it's a generational thing too. I think the millennials on, it's been way too safety conscious, way too,
Mm-hmm.
we can control the outcome if we just stop all the dangers. If you stop all the dangers, you stop all the fun and happiness, sadly. And sometimes mishaps lead to good things. So
Exactly. Mm-hmm. You're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. And I love everything that you just said. And it leads to you know what, it leads to this next question about one of your videos, and you talk about 10 things that happy people spend zero time worrying about, okay? And clearly, your childhood was way happier than mine was. And because I didn't have that freedom and I was, you know, kind of forced to conform and told, I had to fit inside of this box or I was going to be, punished severely. And it was just like all of this fear. And so, truly a huge difference. But this video that you did, 10 things happy people spend zero time worrying about. Out of the 10 things you talk about, the one that resonated with me the most was not caring about what other people think.
It's
And
probably the hardest one, I will admit, even for me.
right.
Yeah, it is. But it's like every time you conquer that one, the happiness that comes in is unbelievable.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. And it's like it's like a bad habit, and it is,
it
on a
is.
subconscious level. And so
Right.
and I'm way better than I used to be. But how do you think that someone can get to the point that they truly just don't care about what people think about them? Or do you think it's possible?
Yeah, that's a great question. It actually takes a little bit of leaping of faith at first. You have to take some leaps of faith, and you just have to kind of break out of your comfort zone. We were talking about how comfort slows us down. So and sometimes it takes even failing, like so
Hmm.
you're gonna just bust out and do something and just see what happens. And one great technique is to go outside of yourself, go into a little easy meditation where you kind of float above yourself, see the activity. And instead of being in it and all insecure about it, you're actually watching it and you can say, hey, chill out down there. Just do what you need to do. And then you can even watch it play out from this non-dual perspective,
Hmm.
which is kind of a Buddhist discipline where you go outside yourself to watch things to see them in a better perspective. Because of course, if we could watch our lives play back, we would adjust a lot, all of us, right? So
Right.
change that, I want to change that. This is a way to do that in real time. So that's one way to do it. Go outside yourself. Also realize it is at first going to feel very uncomfortable, but that's part of growth. So,
Hmm.
just go for it sometimes, like when I was posting early on these TikToks, honestly, one of the most viral ones, if not the most viral one, I didn't even want to post. I thought it was sloppy. I thought I was too hurried. The wind was blowing too strong. I don't
Hmm.
think people could hear me. And all those things actually played into the authenticity. I remember when I had to take a leap of faith. I sat there looking at going, I don't like this. And then I realized the artists often don't like their own work, because they've been dealing with it or watching it or they're too nitpicky about it. And I just said, screw it. And I remember I hit post and I came back later and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Literally it was crazy. It was like millions and millions of views. It was like 12 million views the last time I looked. And that was just on TikTok. And then I put it on Instagram and the same thing happened. And
Hmm.
so sometimes when we do break out, people can maybe even feel that. They can feel, oh wow, that took courage. Sometimes now I have to battle, don't look too polished. Just because you've had this year, don't all of a sudden become polished. Stay uncomfortable.
Hmm. It's that
Stay
authenticity.
hungry.
It's the
Authenticity. Yeah, you
authenticity.
mentioned that early on too, so
Hmm.
that's huge because
It is.
that's what we were so missing, I think, through the 90s and the aughts, is we were missing a lot of authenticity that was with us when things were less digital. I loved the digital world, but too many people that became their only world or,
Yeah.
90%, and that's
Right.
you lose the authentic, so.
Well, and another thing about your approach, you're like me in a lot of ways because you don't care to talk about things from your past. And that's another huge sign of authenticity because some people want to act like that everything is perfect. And it's just not. It doesn't matter who you
Right.
are or what world you live in. I mean,
Yeah.
things have happened. And so you've
Mhm.
talked a lot about, your struggles with weight. and how much weight that you have
Yeah.
lost. And I too have struggled with weight, and much
Okay.
of
Yeah.
that, spawned from subconscious beliefs that I had about my relationship with food. And
Yeah.
and I just want to address this because so many people are obese. And for our listeners who have struggled with obesity, would you talk about your experience and how you've achieved the state you're in now, which is clearly like a state of optimal health and wellness?
Well, we won't say optimal, but let's just say much improved. But yeah,
Okay.
but yeah, actually your timing again is perfect because I just read an article that there are now more obese people on planet Earth than there are hungry people.
Oh
In a
my
way,
gosh.
that's kind of cool, but in a way, it's scary. It doesn't mean the number of hungry people went down. That's the sad part. It means the
Right.
number of obese people has now exceeded 1 billion on planet Earth.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and it does come down to how you're viewing yourself. And sadly, it does come down to what country you live in. You've heard about
Mm-hmm.
these blue zones. I was born pretty much in the state I'm in now, where I'm not huge, I'm not too skinny, but I'm kind of normal. I'm, maybe mid to a little bit under and a little lean, a little mid to lean. There we go. Is my
Mm-hmm.
normal state. You kind of can see when you're a kid, you know what I mean? And not always though. That depends on what you're being fed too. So, but what I found was if I just follow the American way, by 28, a person born in normal, non-big self was suddenly big. I was suddenly a third heavier than I was supposed to be just by doing normal stuff. Oh yeah, let's pull over and get some food at, whatever the fast food place is, or just, oh, let's get a little bit healthier fast food. That'll be better, or whatever and so just by living, if you live the normal American way, if you watch the commercials, if you follow the pretty packaging, yeah, it's going to lead to being overweight. And I even believe that that it probably is even in the subconscious where they're programming us. What are of course is when we see the big sizes on everything, that's telling the subconscious you're supposed to eat at this size.
Right.
You can't get more subconscious programming than giving something that's big. I mean, of course it's in the conscious mind too, but it really does say the subconscious, this is the expected size. And
Mm-hmm.
back in the day when Coke first came out, they were serving it in these little tiny things.
Right.
And so and that was probably a fun way to have a little bit of it. So yeah, and so I was just following the American way. And then what I found I had to go Eastern to
Mm-hmm.
undo it. And the first thing I did was I was also very depressed because, and it wasn't because of my weight. My weight wasn't even bothering me that much. I mean, I had a wife, kids, whatever, I looked like any other guy, in my spare tire, right? It was normal. But it was holding my health down, and it was and I wasn't fulfilling my purpose here really that
Mm-hmm.
well. And so what I did was work on fixing that. I worked on becoming more positive and learning breath work. And breath work was actually very transformational for me. Once I learned to calm my breath down and go within through that, it allowed me to finally meditate, which is something I always had a hard time with, having my ADD, whatever. I'm too old to have been diagnosed that because we didn't call it that back in the day. We just called it hyper, and we
Right.
didn't get a stigma and drug us up. And
Yeah.
some people need that. I'm not bashing all or prescriptions or drugs. I just think that they're being overdone currently.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but I do know, and I have seen them help though. So I'm not going to say in some cases. So I'm not like a purist. I try to live in both worlds. We're in a cool technical world, but
Mm-hmm.
we're also the natural world is where we're from and what makes us happy and each other. Just being with
Mm-hmm.
humans and even talking, just the voices and all this is all what we're
Right.
really doing. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm 47 years old, and
Okay.
I'm in better
See,
health.
I thought you were a millennial, so good job. I thought you're Gen X. Okay, so all right, yeah, so that's great. So
Thank you.
yeah, both of you
Um,
guys look like millennials. So I don't know if Will is. Oh, yeah, all right, that's great.
he's 44. I'm 47, and he acts
Right on
like
the
that I'm
edge.
like so much older than him, right? Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. It
But
is. It is. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I'm just gonna, I mean, it's like you said, you had to go Eastern. And
Yeah.
flashback to 20 years, I'm 47. Let's go back 20 years ago. I promise you, I'm in better health right now than I was 20 years ago
Yes,
because, and it
I'm
can
with
be
you.
done. It can be done.
Yes.
And a lot
Yes.
of the changes that I have made have just, probably the most transformative changes that I have made been over the past couple of years. And I adopted Ayurvedic practices.
Nice. I love Ayurveda. That was huge for us too. Yeah.
Right? I
Now, when
mean,
did you, how long have you been with doing Ayurveda? Did you say when did you adopt that?
about 2 years.
Okay. Wow. Cool.
Because I am a student of Deepak Chopra's. And so I've
Okay.
been with
Perfect.
the Chopra
Yes.
Center for two
That's
years, and I've
right.
gotten my certifications in meditation and Ayurvedic
Right.
health. And now I'm finishing up my total well-being life coach certification. And so
Yeah.
I didn't really know a lot about Ayurveda until I went to the Chopra Center. And it just all made sense. I mean, it just made
Yeah.
more sense to me than
Yes.
anything ever
Yeah.
had. And so it does not surprise me that that is how you shed those pounds and started to feel
Yeah.
better. And
And it was, yeah, yeah. And it was tuning into Ayurveda too. Go ahead though. I don't, you were on a roll there.
no, I was just going to say, I read somewhere that people ask you all the time about how old you are, and I think you said you're 52,
I know
right?
I've been Google and it comes up Joe Drummerboy age, how old Joe Drummerboy, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, calm down. But yeah, no, that is actually that became part of the fun, and now I have a web page where people can go to see that I am actually 42 years young. Kidding, I'm
Nice, nice,
52.
nice. Well, you can easily pass for 42 because I was
Thank you.
shocked to learn that you're 52. And so
Thank
I
you.
just want to bring awareness to this because so many people think that by the time that they reach a certain age that they're just done and they've got to stop and there's no need and
That's
lifting
it.
weights or eating
It's
right
in their
because they're
mind.
just old and it's all in here and it just really
Right.
doesn't mean anything.
Right. Exactly. I actually, in one of the first emails I sent out in my newsletter to people, it mentions that it says, do not believe you're old if you're 30, 40, 50. I go all the way up to 90, you're not old. 100, maybe you could say you want to be old then, like, yeah, I'm a centenarian or whatever. So,
Yeah.
it's in your mind, and I love that you mentioned Deepak Chopra actually, because
Hmm.
that was another green flag when you wrote, because I wasn't going to mention this, when I mentioned the breathing exercise that literally was the first thing that got me truly to get into meditation. It was Deepak Chopra's Anapanasati mindful breathing technique that is now only available on Apple Music. It used to be on Spotify. Now you have to buy it off Apple, but
Hmm.
and it's worth it. I still listen to it to this day. It's been since 2016. I listened to that, and I'm actually right now making my own version for the Club Qigong members. And I think I'm going to actually put this one on YouTube for just the world because this one
Hmm.
has helped me so much. It's like an 8 or 9 minute mindful breathing exercise where you pretty much unite your mind and body and even your spirit in this little breathing technique. And it just was medicine for me. And it also allowed me to go into the subconscious while awake. So
Hmm.
it was like that began, a lot of cool things. So the fact that you came out of Deepak Chopra's school is probably part of why the synchronicity was so powerful here, because I actually owe him a lot, and I love Deepak. So
Oh my
yeah.
goodness. I mean,
Yeah,
the man is an absolute genius and he is also the person that taught me pranayama. And when I started
exactly.
doing that
Yep.
breath work, I mean, it
Yep.
fuels that digestive fire. And
Yeah.
I didn't even realize, okay, so I digest my emotions like I digest my food. Oh, okay. I mean, I just didn't.
Yeah, David G from Deepak's school. David G is a meditation, a guided meditation guy. He
Oh
used
yeah,
to
I know
be
him.
back. Yeah,
Hmm.
David G. He's the dean, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
David G first taught me about that. So yeah, those guys are doing amazing work, and they're inspiring people like us who then go out to try to inspire others, right? Or who do it.
Exactly.
Please do. All right. So
Exactly. Well, you know what? This leads to the next thing that I wanted to ask you because, okay, so the name of your business is Club Qigong, right?
Qigong, yeah, it's Qigong. It's spelled
Qigong.
Q-I. It's very un-English because
Hmm.
normally we have to have a U after the Q. Here we don't. So
Yeah.
it's Q-I, which is just pronounced chi, which is like just same as cheese, but you just take off the S-E. and Qi is just a life force energy. And then Gong means work or cultivation on a high level. And so Qi Gong means we're cultivating our energy at a very high level here, but just with simple little moves that anybody can do, even a grandmother, in her 90s can do. In fact, that's one of the moves we got from a grandmother in her 90s. So who's very fit. So Qigong is how it's pronounced. And it's what part of the fun of it is that nobody knows it. Google and Apple don't even know. Actually, Apple, I think, finally knows it. Google still will type out like Chung or Qigong. That's our favorite one, when they'll type Qigong.
Yeah. Right.
And I mean the voice to a text, is what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
And it's fun because it means we're so ahead of the curve that it's not even in the transcription software yet, And when I love doing that. That's been part of my thing. When I first was a webmaster, I started websites in like 95. I was, pretty much right when they were coming out. People were like, didn't know what it was. They were like, they thought a web thing was something that's some huge industrial operating machine. I still don't know what that is. So like, is that what you're doing? And I was like, no, it's a website. And my dad asked me at one point, Joe, what real job are you going to get when you're done doing whatever you're doing now? And of course, then the web took off, and then my dad loved it, and I had me teach him all kinds of stuff. I don't want to say loved it or whatever, but he actually does. He surfs it all the time, getting all kinds of information. And it took about 5 years, and then everyone was like, "Oh wow, this is not only real, it's the future," So it was fun watching that happen, and it was fun having the intuition. I'm not bragging. It was the same with Qigong. I'm just showing the pattern. It's the same thing with Qigong. Just watch. I think in 10 or 20 years, it's going to be way more known. And Gen Z is all over it. They love the idea of energy work. They're not scared of it. The older generations, they hear energy work and they're not sure what's going on. They get zapped. Is this demonic? Which it's absolutely not. It's especially what we teach. It's medical Qigong. So it's just based on traditional Chinese medicine, which is just studying the energetic meridians in your body, how breath flows through you, how your organs interact with each other. And the most important part of Qigong is that it shows where negative emotions are stored in the organs and how to clear them out. And so and with literally like 5-minute moves. And that's the beauty of it, because if you don't do that, then you have to clear them out in some other way. And people do find other ways. There's dance, we can name all, a farmer in his field could have some way of getting his energy, negative Qi out of his organs, But if you're not finding a way, if you're just sitting like many people are, not finding some way to have some somatic healing, it's definitely recommended. You'll confront other issues is what I guess I'm getting at, Sally. And part of what's energized Melissa and I, that's my wife who helped found it, is just sadly seeing people around us deal with the issues that come with not clearing out certain things. You know what I mean? And just friends, even just whoever, and then when they do get into it, seeing the dramatic changes. So, but it's actually, it gets very serious. We try to keep it fun and light, but it is when you're talking medical stuff, it really can. I mean, I've had people writing me saying like, "You've saved my life," or I don't have this chronic thing, or I don't have to take this pill, and just crazy things. It's beautiful and I love it, but it's it also, I try not to feel too much responsibility because I'm not a doctor. I'm more a reporter. And and someone who can demonstrate the techniques because they're that easy. I'm not that skilled. Now, Melissa is a trained dancer and she is skilled. And so she actually helps train me to do them. And then she also does courses. And then she'll train me before I'll go on TikTok or whatever, anywhere and do anything. She'll tell me what I'm doing, good or bad. And so that's cool too. And yeah. So
People, and it took me a long time to understand how all of this works. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I never understood that if I am carrying around a bunch of trauma and I'm carrying
Right.
around a bunch of disempowering beliefs, and I'm carrying around a bunch of negative emotions, and I'm eaten alive by jealousy and anger and all this stuff. I did not realize
Yeah.
that I was creating all this inflammation in my body.
That has been actually what that you seem to be able to have a great ability to nail the points that have resonated with everyone, that have resonated with people that I was hoping would resonate, I guess is one way of saying it.
Mhm.
Because you're right, that's what's been blowing people away. And it's not like I'm saying it, it's Chinese medicine, which is thousands of years old, watching people's daily lives, watching them suppress their emotions, and then, seeing, oh, yeah, we can see why he had this or that. Like for instance, anger. People think when they get mad at somebody, it's hurting the other person. It's hurting the person who's angry the most. And in fact, in traditional Chinese medicine, anger is stored in the liver. So the universe has set it up so angry people are going to expire quicker. That's what the
Mhm.
universe
That's
is
right.
saying. Loving
Yep.
people are going to last way, way longer. Now, of course, there's all lots of other variables, but as far as your organs are concerned, yeah, you want to you nailed it. The trauma is stored physically if we don't deal with it
Mhm.
emotionally and just through our mind and our body releasing it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
I
and
mean,
and
yeah,
yeah,
chronic stress. I mean, chronic stress,
right.
if we
Yes.
don't do something, to release it, then that
Right.
inflammation is going to manifest into all. I mean, it's the
Yes.
root cause of nearly every disease known to man.
Exactly. Yeah. And the root. Yeah. Exactly. You just said it. The traditional Chinese medicine, the root cause of disease is the suppression of emotion.
Yeah,
And so what that means, it means we're pushing it into our bodies.
right.
And so we're not even pushing it. It's like, I don't have anywhere to go. So here I go. And here's the not cool, but here's the crazy part. It was for survival. It was helping us at first. Oh, I went over to that bush and I got bit. My organs even know to stay away from that bush. I'm that
Right.
powerful. That's how animals can even there. It's like how instinct works, right? And so
Mhm.
it was helping us. So we're so civilized now. We don't need to store trauma in our emotions to help keep us alive.
No, we don't need to be in fight or
So,
flight all the time. And I
no,
mean,
no,
yeah, and
right,
it's like, I mean, everything that, well, not, well, most of everything I do in my work, I view it through the lens of, you know, manifestation. And I don't even like to use that word a lot because it's
right.
become like so
Unfortunately, now
trendy,
that word has been abused as well, right? So,
gimmicky. Yeah, it's
right,
like it feels gimmicky. And God knows there's nothing gimmicky about it. But,
right,
all of this I view through that lens of manifestation because it all, I mean, you're creating your physical world, and we all have a lot
right.
more power than I think a lot of people realize. And um, so for the people that maybe are, let's say, skeptics of the work that we do, would you just give an example of something that you have deliberately, consciously created? Like one example.
Right. Okay. That's a great idea. I could actually say for sure that recently, I've actually been able to produce a play using this technique, an entire play.
Starry
Uh,
Night?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Night was 100% manifested with zero budget. Of course, I put some money in only when I needed to, but we didn't set out trying to pretend to be Hollywood, like, okay, we have $40,000 or whatever, we're going to do this, that. That's
Mhm.
ego. It was all manifestation, and like here's a perfect example of what happened. So we needed a Vincent Van Gogh for Starry Night, right?
Mhm.
We had everybody else, but nobody wanted to play the guy who chopped off his ear and gets shot or shoots himself. They think we tell a different story. So we tell a story that he didn't chop off his ear and he didn't shoot himself. There's been history. Well, we can talk about that, maybe later. But basically, so everybody's like, "Oh man, we need events." They're starting, of course, doubt me. I've never done this before. I was just like, just watch. It's one of my manifestation phrases. You know, that is definitely one of them. Just watch. And
Yeah.
um, and so the night finally we had the scripts arrive. It was actually the day of. My friend called me, who's also on the plane. He goes, "There was this mushroom farmer I just met, and he looks just like Vincent Van Gogh." I'm like, dude, yeah, ask him. And I'm like, and luckily this guy really admired my friend. They're both good, honest, hardworking dudes, and so so my friend said, will you do this? And he was like, yeah, I'll check it out. And so the night we get the scripts, right, everyone's there, and he texts me, hey, I'm here. And I'm like, actually, he was like 10, he was a little late, so I'm like starting to sweat. I'm like, because you already have in theater, people all are no shows all the time. They think, oh, I'll do that part, and then they chicken out or whatever. And so I was like, oh boy, here we go. He's not going to show. And I'm just sitting there, God, what am I going to do? Actually, no, I didn't even doubt. I was still like, oh, he'll show. I'm sure part of me, I'm sure my ego is doubting though. And so,
We're
and then,
human.
yeah, and so, yeah, yeah. And so he texts me, and here was when manifestation is happening, there's synchronicity, as we know.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is he shows up wearing this blue hoodie. It's the exact same blue as the scene in the painting that we needed him in. And we didn't tell him what to dress or anything. He was just wearing that. He wasn't trying to say, oh, I'm going to be like Van Gogh. I'm going to wear a blue hoodie. Van Gogh, there weren't hoodies in the 19th century. So he just happened to wear the exact color that was in the painting and in Van Gogh, and the Van Gogh we were portraying, the part of his life. This was the blue of Van Gogh. And he sat down, immediately connected with the leading lady that he was going to connect with in a very also synchronistic way. It was incredible, and I just sat there going, yeah. And I didn't really say I told you so, but I definitely got to enjoy. I definitely got to enjoy the moment where this guy, I'm actually publishing the play soon onto YouTube, so you'll see the exact guy. Jareth Zelmer, amazing guy who just stood up and played Vincent amazingly and broke history. This is the first dramatic production to ever tell that he did not cut off his ear or shoot himself. He had both incidents, just to summarize it real quick. He was covering for other people to save them. So he was actually an incredibly selfless person. His friend Paul Gauguin most likely slashed off his ear in a fight. Makes way more sense. He didn't want to get Paul in trouble, so he took the blame. And a kid who had a faulty gun, who liked playing Wild West, accidentally shot him. And again, he took the blame. He was just manifesting himself, some of his best paintings. There's no reason to kill himself. So we tell that story for the first time. I'll be on YouTube soon. So yeah.
Well, I can't wait to watch it. And now I'm going to be seeing it like through a totally different perspective now that I know that story.
Yeah. The whole thing was manifested. We call them Starry Night Serendipities because they just kept happening. And they're happening again with the documentary and film. It's almost as if, I'll just say this playfully, Vincent's spirit is involved because he's like, hey, let's set the record straight. This guy can actually do it.
I just got cold chills. Like, I'm serious.
Like, really?
That's
I swear. Sign right there.
I swear. Okay. Yeah. And anybody starts talking about synchronicity, I'm like, oh yeah. And I actually feel sorry for people who haven't experienced that, because when you experience synchronicity, that right there is the key. Like Wayne Dyer said, infinite patience produces immediate results. Okay. And so many people have a hard time detaching from that outcome. And when you experience synchronicity, you're rested easy. You know what's going on. I mean, you know it's coming, and it's all coming together exactly the way you want it to. And usually it comes together better than what you would even think. It's just like your guy nailed the character, right?
Right, exactly. And also even the fact that I actually wrote the play like 20 years ago, but I couldn't finish it because the ending didn't make sense. So when I finally came back to write it, the historians had done the work and it was ready to tell the real story. So
that's awesome.
Synchronicity. Yeah. So yeah, that was definitely manifestation in action.
That's absolutely fabulous. So I have one more thing I want to ask you, and then I want us to talk about how people can find you, okay? Sure. And so the question that I have, it's about your video, What Nobody Tells You About Your Health. And emotional intelligence was the focus.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was fascinated by this. Okay. So you talked about how medical doctors have declined in empathy and understanding. And I have witnessed that firsthand. Okay. And so you say in this video that our emotions are everything to our health. And I mean, I absolutely could not agree more about that. And when I was weighed down by all those terrible emotions, anger, jealousy, humiliation, guilt, shame, all of that, I was sick. And I was sick from a very young age, and just broken bones and obesity and high blood pressure. And I developed this rare bladder condition called interstitial cystitis. It's commonly referred to as IC. And so I always had these head colds, and none of my other friends were sick like that all the time, but I was. And once I got control of my emotions, my health improved. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I'm in better health now than I was 20 years ago. So I'm living proof of what you say in your video. But what I want to know is, why do you think that this behavior is trending in the medical field?
I think sadly, it's just trending in society in general. And the pandemic made it much worse. I will say sympathetically for the doctors, the pandemic was a nightmare for everybody in the healthcare industry. And so they're probably just filled with the cortisol themselves, you know what I mean? Which is the stress hormone we talk about that keeps us down.
Mm-hmm.
They're definitely more filled with it than normal. So you would think, if anything, it would be teaching more emotional intelligence. And hey, why not Qigong or at least, some light form of yoga or something? So because yeah, you're right. It's actually it's very sad, and why is it though? Because sadly, the focus is again. I will actually go to the root of it here real quick. It's science is still stuck in materialist thinking. And that means that they think the material world is the causal realm. If you look at like what Einstein was touching into, we're in a consciousness-based reality, not a materialist-based. The material world springs from consciousness. Doctors aren't learning that and they're not teaching that. And that's why it's almost abrasive to the spirit and even the mind. And they come out feeling that, and then that emanates to their patients.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's really sad. If once, as I think things are going to change as we get more enlightened, especially as we're all getting more connected here and learning Eastern, and even there's good Western stuff too. There's good on every side. And
Mm-hmm.
once we connect all that, that people will figure out that, figure this out for themselves. Because yeah, it's very sad to see that the very people that are supposed to be healing us having possibly even making it worse, because that video resonated way more. I heard a woman going off in a supermarket, so I said, oh, I'll do a video about that, and then boom, everybody's like, yeah, me too, me too, me too. And I was like, oh wow, this is real.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it is very sad. I think it's just, but the root cause is the material thinking.
Mm-hmm.
When they get out of the material thinking, they realize emotions are even more powerful than drugs. Wow, drugs are just trying to do what emotions can already do for us,
Right.
so, and states of consciousness to go even
Mm-hmm.
deeper. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, that's a genius perspective. And for those people that are, I mean, absolutely genius. And for the people that are listening, so how can they find you?
Yeah. Well, I am at joedrummerboy.com. And and that actually goes to joemoody.com, because my name is Joe Moody, but I'm out, the persona is Joe Drummer Boy. And so either one of those actually will take you to me. And then if you want to go directly to where we created all the fitness, where you can, purge negativity, the weight loss meditations that they can do, in there to reprogram the subconscious, that's all over at clubqigong.com. So that's CLUBQIGONG.com. But of course, if you go to joedrummerboy.com, it's linked right there. So,
Okay.
yeah, but
And
thank you.
I'll post all of your information with this episode too. And just so you know, I signed up for your newsletter, and
Awesome.
I got the video of you doing the Qigong. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and I guess it was probably like a beginner, or for beginners maybe, but I
Yeah.
did it today for the first
Oh, neat.
time.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I think you're probably looking at your next client.
Oh, that's wonderful. And
Yeah.
yeah, and you can share it with Will, because we do a family thing. It's like once you get one membership, you can share it with your whole family and even friends, because that's what it's about. It almost even connects people. And it synchronizes relationships, if anyone out there is looking for that, not only synchronizes inwardly if people need that, but if you're in a relationship and you want more synchronicity, Qigong will do it. It brings in that life force energy and even the spirit energy. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I'm excited to get started, and I enjoyed doing it today. And it's so simple. I mean, I feel like
that's the best part. I know, because I couldn't do it if it was too complicated. Like Tai Chi, it takes weeks, months, even years to learn. Qigong, you can learn today.
Yeah. I was just, falling right into it. And I was like, oh, okay, this is
so
good.
Cool.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah.
That's great. Okay. Learn that, Paula.
Oh, absolutely. So yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to get started. And so this is something that, I mean, anybody can do every day, right? I mean,
absolutely. In fact, when I miss a day, I will definitely feel it. And yeah, it is actually meant to be daily. And what's cool is there's a huge variety because it's been around for thousands of years. There's thousands of different forms and moves. And so you can target, do I want to clear out grief and heartbreak? Do I want to work on more on, weight loss? Do I want to work on, just getting a smooth energy field, a smooth aura, which is, and I recommend the 8 brocades. The 8 brocades is one we probably teach beginners first. And brocades are silk fabrics. And so the form implies they leave us feeling like we're wearing a silk robe. So it's 8 little forms. So
interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Highly recommend it.
All right. Well, I'm going to get signed up, and I'm assuming I can do all of that on your website, right?
Absolutely. Yep. It's all over at the website. Yep.
All right, cool. Well, Joe, this has been absolutely wonderful. And my goal for this podcast is to leave people in better shape than they were when they tuned in. And I think the information that has come out of our talk today has absolutely accomplished that. And so, awesome. Glad, so thankful.
It's been an honor for me as well. And I actually feel like I'm coming out of it better as well. So it's already worked on at least one person.
Wonderful.
Great questions and insights. And yeah, just thank you so much. This has been fantastic.
The Thought Snob Podcast with Paula Swope has been brought to you by Thought Snob Media in association with Special Purpose Studios. All production, mixing, and sound engineering by me, Will Swope. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Please take a few seconds to give us 5 stars and leave a review. See you on the next Thought Snob Podcast with Paula Swope.